Attacks flew at the UAE Tour Stage 4 on Jebel Jais today. Pogacar, Intermarché and co looking good. When they roll out, Bissiger was leading the race after his incredible time trial yesterday. Breakaway went with Rastelli of Bardiani and Jakob Egholm of Trek. Philipsen catching up with Pogacar. They were former teammates when Philipsen was on UAE. EF Education First were controlling the breakaway for Bissiger today, and Cavendish actually got caught up in a crash. This reminded me of the Thomas one in the Tour last year, and unlucky for Cavendish, it looks like someone crashed over the speed bump, went sideways, caught Cavendish in his front wheel, went down, couldn't avoid it, and he went down pretty hard. Don't know what speed they were going, but he did get back up. You see him here with Daryl Impey and continued the race and actually looked all right on the climb, which was Jebel Jais, 20 Ks, 5%, big highway climb, draft, hugely important. We rarely, if ever, see significant gaps on this climb because the race beforehand is not particularly difficult compared to like a multi-mountain stage in European racing. And EF were doing a comfortable pace for Bissiger. You see Zabel on the front chilling on the left-hand side. It was only when Pogacar's like, all right, enough is enough. Not sure that's his accent, but we'll run with it. He sends Mikkel Bjerg to the front. He did a decent TT yesterday for UAE, and I remember him pulling either the base of her feet last year, Bjerg. He did a decent pull last year in UAE Tour. He starts the lap timer on his head unit and he's like, it's go time with 15 Ks to go in the climb. So the first 10 to 15 minutes weren't as difficult. I don't think, looking at the data, the last 30 minutes was a little bit more difficult and they start to be strung out now. Pogacar taking a gel. He's got Impey on his wheel. Berwick looking good today for Israel, their climber in this race. Almeida and Bennett, the first big mountain test for them on UAE Team Emirates. Well, Bennett was behind Micah and Almeida in the train. He got sent to the front to pace with 12.5 Ks to go after Bjerg. Kwiatkowski goes out the back door on this climb. EF start to lose riders. They're powerless as their GC man here. And just so you know, some other transfers you might haven't seen, Hindley's in front of Vlasov for Bora Hansgrohe, and not transfers, but Jan Hirt and Rein Taramay behind there in the fluorescent yellow of Intermarché Wanty-Go. But watch out for them later on this climb and indeed this weekend on her feet. And Pogacar was always calling out, increase the pace. And then you see Bennett visibly increased it, dropped off. Bissiger's like, well, this isn't too bad. No one's going to pace right now. I'm not getting dropped. I can try and keep this jersey. And Micah attacks. Curiously, with Hindley bridging to him on his wheel, and then I think Paulo Guerrero chasing. Dumoulin gets dropped, quite surprisingly actually, with 8 Ks to go on the climb, and then Pogacar attacks. 8 Ks to go on Jebel Jais, and Pogacar's attacked, and there hasn't been consistent hard pacing. The group is 30 deep plus, and this seemed to be the strategy, spontaneous or planned or otherwise. UAE were going to roll attacks with Pogacar and Micah, even with Almeida sometimes closing to that group and Michael looking back, seeing the whole peloton as well. Bissiger eventually gets dropped and Hindley goes. Almeida seemed to be the one closing gaps with Yates on his wheel. Ineos had Ganna and Plapp there with Yates. Yates, he knows or seemed to know you can't make big gaps on Jebel Jais. Just try and get away scot-free, and Jebel Hafit is where he is going to try and shine later this week. Taramay goes again, Micah bridging with him, and they actually start to work together. They're joined, I think, by Andreas Leknusund of DSM and Plapp, and I actually think it kind of cost Ineos a bit, Plapp having to do that TT on his road bike. Ganna was still in the bunch at this point, spinning it up, but it really might have helped Ineos tactically to have Plapp as a genuine second GC threat, at least on this stage. He might drop on the feet, but he's a minute plus back already because of the TT on the road bike yesterday. Almeida again is bridging back to the Micah group, which Micah's kind of initiated this, chasing and working with Taramay. He attacks again, so maybe UAE Tour, Micah's in good shape. Pogacar and Micah sort of had an agreement that Micah could try and go for the stage, at least on Jais himself, if he didn't bring anyone dangerous with him. You see, in fact, Plapp now chasing that group because Ineos aren't represented in a group that has Micah and Taramay, Chris Harper and Maida. And Guerrero probably would have called UAE's bluff and just not chased it, to be honest. But already on Jais, we've seen more action than we did last year. We still have 3.7 Ks to go, and if you missed it, don't know how you would have, the nuclear attack you never saw video last week, these are the two men responsible. Rein Taramai, Jan Hirt, I don't know what they're getting paid, but compared to the guys on their wheel, it is not as much. And Taramai did like 490 watts for 80, 90 seconds. They're doing 30 kilometers an hour, and they drop Almeida off the wheel on this climb. And to be honest, credit to Intermarché for trying on this climb. It's very hard to get gaps, and Jan Hirt isn't able to really get a gap. Watch out for them on Jebel Jais. Jan Hirt can drop Pogacar on Jebel Jais, and I can't wait to see Intermarché try, because Taramay and him are flying at the moment. But Pogacar marks him here with 2.9 Ks to go, and it's just been non-stop attacks since Pogacar opened it up, or Micah opened it up with 8 Ks to go on Jais. Yates doesn't counter hit immediately, sort of just a soft attack with everyone in the wheels, and then stops pacing, and the stage then goes back to what we expected from Jebel Jais here. Seb Berwick brought back Group 2 with Almeida and Howson and co, and Almeida goes to the front, begins the lead out. You're not seeing double. That's still Ganna in this group, who rode a steady pace on this climb. But even with Plapp doing a reverse lead out or going for the stage win himself, forcing Micah to close him in the last 400 meters, with Pogacar in this position, uphill finish, no Roglic, there can only be one winner. And despite Guerrero jumping early, Pogacar absolutely torches everybody as expected. Maybe that's how they drew it up. Maybe that's just how it ended up on Jebel Jais. But he takes the 10 bonus seconds, 4 extra on Yates, because Yates comes second, and Vlasov, Pogacar puts another 6 seconds into him. He takes a 3-second gap on Jan Hirt. Last year, this is the climb Jonas Vingegaard won on. I think the reversal to have Jebel Jais first before her feet is already a success from an entertainment perspective. Ganna just misses out on wearing the leader's jersey tomorrow by 2 seconds because he got gapped by Pogacar, who won the stage. It's a sprint stage tomorrow. Maybe Ganna goes in the break, tries to take an intermediate sprint points. But Pogacar wins the stage ahead of Yates, Vlasov, 3-second gap to a pretty large group of most of the GC favourites. And as I said, the race is set up really well now for an all-out attack on Jebel Jais, a steeper climb this weekend from Yates, from Jan Hirt. Will Pogacar be able to defend? It's a smaller gap to Yates than it was last year, only 15 seconds this year. Ineos seem to be short of a light mountain domestique or two. Maybe they'll form an alliance with Intermarché. I can't wait to watch. Hope you enjoyed the video, and see you with the recap tomorrow. Ciao.